Hey one, hey all, and this is being recorded on Labor Day weekend. Of course, we're getting ready to kind of head out of the summer months and into autumn, and what better way to do that than to begin looking at the Transformers Siege Deluxe Class Wave 3 figures with this guy, the perhaps underestimated Red Alert. And he's going to be our focus this time around in the latest GotBot True review. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. Happy Labor Day weekend to you. I know that this will be going up after that, but I hope it was a good one for you as we kind of start to settle in a little bit to our autumn routines. I mentioned that for a reason that I'll get to in a minute. Naturally, before I get to that, I'm going to say please like, comment, share, of course, subscribe, and while you're at it, that's right, please hit the notification bell. It lets you know every time new content of all sorts goes up here on the channel. Check out Machinery of Man, the Everything Factor, Transformers Collectors NL, and the Autobot family, and have a look for me everywhere across social media. And I mention about us moving into autumn because I have a lot more, typically I have a lot more free time in the summer, although my summer was pretty busy this year, naturally. We may see things, I'm not going to say slow down, but you may notice that, like, you know, the kind of routine I've had the last few weeks might not necessarily stay exactly the same. Just bear with me, man. We'll get through it together. We'll get through it together. And of course, there's still plenty of episodes of Universal Collision to go up. There's still a bunch of things I'm waiting on for review purposes. So there's still a lot to come. And the focus today will be on Red Alert. And I feel like that this is the dude who's going to kind of shelf warm from Wave 3 of the Siege line. And I get it. It's a mold reuse. It's Red Alert. I mean, I don't know if anybody would pick Red Alert as like, he's my favorite character. Red Alert's just kind of there. But if you have a side swipe, logic sort of dictates why not have a Red Alert. But that being said, is he being overlooked because he's simply a repaint? Or is he being overlooked because he's not very good? Well, we're about to find out when we look at this guy and we compare him to the Siege Sideswipe, and we compare him to the Generations iteration of Red Alert. And we ask the question whether or not he is guilty or innocent of the recent price increase for the Siege line for deluxe class figures. There's a lot to talk about, so let's head over to the table and take a closer look at this dude. And that's right, to my delight, shock, and amazement, we actually have the beginning of our coverage of the Wave 3 Deluxes for the Transformers Siege line, and we're going to kick things off with the guy who is generally being recognized as the shelf warmer of this wave, the one who's probably not being given quite the respect that he deserves, Red Alert. Now, we're getting these a lot sooner than I expected, and I'm not complaining. I'm very happy about that. Very happy about that. They're not, you know, abundant by any stretch of the imagination. There's been what looks to be maybe 2 cases at one store yet. But they're started, and that's always a good thing to see. You will notice this time we have Red Alert starting out in vehicle mode because we already looked at his wave mate, mold brother, I guess. That being Siege Sideswipe back in episode 491, and we did the conversion there going from robot to vehicle. So, as we like to do here on the channel every now and then, we're going to do the conversion back the other way from vehicle to robot this time. And we're going to compare this guy, of course, as I stated, to the Generations Red Alert. So you can kind of, you know, decide then which one fits your collection. And naturally, because this is a deluxe class figure, it was subject to the 33% price hike that the Siege line had. Actually, the Last Night line is where it started, but that the Siege line had, and we're going to do guilty or innocent. I think that's even more important to do now in light of recent announcements that there will be more price hikes yet again. I don't know if the market can take it. I don't know if the market here can take it, if I'm being perfectly honest about it. Nevertheless, we're going to start things off and take a quick look at the packaging first, like we always do. And so we have packaging, we have beautiful artwork of Red Alert over on this side. I really like the way that that turned out. Your typical stuff on that side. We have the product images on the back like we typically have. It's fine packaging, it's packaging. That being said, we recently had the announcement that plastic is going to go, so like I don't know how they're planning on necessarily hanging these things on the shelf because they have plastic tabs up top. Here you can look inside, you can see what copies of the figure have good paint apps, bad paint apps, if you have multiple ones on the shelf, whatnot. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what it's going to be replaced with or if you're even going to be able to see the figure. But I talked about all of that not that long ago on one of the GotBot Goes Live shows. If you didn't check it out, hey, check it out, because I kind of addressed it there. And giving credit where credit is due, I feel like in the Siege line the instructions have been far superior to any that they've done in recent years. Of course, my favorite part of these is the Accessory Stats page, and this is the particle beam circuit welder, whether it's a handheld blaster down below or like a fire axe, battle axe thing up above. It seems like if it's the axe, it has great accuracy but is much weaker. It seems like it's a lot stronger if it's the blaster, but not quite as accurate. And here we have that blaster, and the thing that makes it an axe is this here fire emergency light bar that I'm holding on to via its handy dandy 5mm peg. And the peg slots into a hole at the top of this thing, and he holds the barrel as if it's the handle. That being said, you will note that it's in that hole up top right there. It can only go in on that side. If you try to put it in from this side, it won't go in. Weird, man. And here we have the bot of the hour. It is Red Alert in his vehicle mode. The light bar goes up top. The blaster I just have put in on a 5mm port on this side. It's this 5mm port actually, except on the other side. Some people have wondered and asked, can you put the blaster on the roof and then put the light bar on top of the blaster? Not really, not that I can see. Not that works any good. I feel like this is the only thing you can really do with it, which is a little bit unfortunate. I guess this says fire rescue. I don't know. FD. I don't know what the little Cybertronian stuff is on the hood. I do like the light bar. There's a lot of a mix here of white, red, and black. Like, it almost looks like a hodgepodge to me. Naturally, me being me, I kind of wish that there was white detailing kind of down the sides of the window. I wish the very top was painted white so it looked more like a vehicle. Maybe some more black along the side to kind of fill out the window look. I don't know. I find the mix of black, red, and white here a little bit jarring, actually. Now, it rolls fine. It rolls great. No problem. I do like the red on the wheels, on the, I don't know, hubcaps, rims, whatever. Here he is with the Generations iteration of Red Alert that actually looks like a car. You know, which do you prefer? The one that says Fire Rescue and has the kind of triangular light bar on the top, or the Siege one? I'll say this. I think I like the deep red on the Siege better, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Taking that out of it. So, can we do anything yet about the scores for this guy? I'm going to hold off on that until we get him into his robot mode. So we're going to begin by dealing with the lower body first, and we start by removing the blaster. That being said, you can either leave the light bar in, or you can remove it. I'm going to leave it in because why not? We're going to start by coming, and I'll say this by the way, when we come underneath here, it's nice, it's clean. It's clean on this version, and it's clean on the Generations version, both for Sideswipe and for Red Alert. You don't see a bunch of like robot parts really hanging out under either vehicle. I tell you, they know how to do a Sideswipe and a Red Alert, that's for sure. Here we begin by opening out these these sections on the leg, and we will open out the doors. And at this point we're going to flip the legs down. Now you probably already know that there's sections back right here that are really joints for the knee. Well, you push that forward and you push that forward, and if we turn the guy around, what do you know? We have the feet pushed out so that we can flip them down, no problem. And then we can flip in the shins, split the legs, and really, this is the lower body done. The only thing that we really have left to do is to rotate it around. And now we can deal with the upper body. And perhaps the best way to do that is to get the guy stood up. And with him stood up, we just come over here and flip out that arm and bring it up, straighten it out, bring out the hand, flip in that door. Same over here, we bring it out, up, straighten out the elbow, flip out the hand, bring in the door. We open this section all the way out. That was covering his face. We make sure we have the shoulders out of the way. We bring this down, and then we bring the shoulders down. And in the end, boom, here we have Red Alert in his robot glory. So what can we say about this guy that hasn't already been said? Well, not much, because a lot of people have covered a lot of things with this lad. But I will say this. I have seen a lot of images of this guy, and I thought all along that the head was a different color red than what we have on the torso. It's not. It's the exact same. So I do like seeing that. The light bar is definitely more reminiscent of G1 than the Classics is. In terms of his paint apps, it's fairly close. I'm not... neither myself nor Starscream White really like the gloss black or the battle damage down on his shins. We feel like it should be more matte to sort of match the rest of his body, which is quite matte. It looks great, but it's quite matte. I don't understand why gloss was used really just on the shins. And while the blue detailing is nice right there, it's also not animation accurate. So kind of painting the entire shin over black, I think I would be okay with that, honestly. Silver feet, he should have white feet, but silver feet's fine. The thighs, they're white. The black on the abdomen, the chest is correct. The arms, they're the stylized part of this guy because it is a side swipe remold. And there are actually differences between the two in the animation. Because on Red Alert, he's supposed to have his tires out on his shoulders, and then there's like a red section, and then his forearm is what is white with the black hands. But his actual like real upper arm, like shoulder, should probably be black because it's actually supposed to be a tire there. And his doors flip in on the side, but really his doors do sort of hang off of his arms, a la the G1 toy. Side swipes don't really hang off of his arms the same. They're more integrated. So if you look at the art for Red Alert and for side swipe, they are slightly different in robot mode because of the positioning of those doors. This is still good though. I mean, you're not mistaking that this is obviously Red Alert by any stretch of the imagination. Now, before we actually give any grades, here he is next to his Generations counterpart, and you will notice that on the Generations one, he does have the doors on the outside of his arms. It's not exactly correct, but when it comes to Sideswipe and Sunstreaker, this little black armband section here allows the door to go flipped around to the back of the arm so you don't really see it. Because on those two characters, you don't really see the doors. However, on Red Alert, you do. So you can at least rotate it to the outside of the arm and sort of mimic the look of having the door there. Now, I said a long time ago when I looked at the Generations Red Alert, way back in episode 93, that his paint apps were about a 9.5. They're pretty darn accurate. Are there a few things that I could do to make it more accurate? Yes. By rights, his thighs should be white, and by rights, his lower arms, instead of being gray, should be white. So neither one of these guys are perfectly colored. But because the Generations one can at least mimic the doors on the outside, I think it edges out a little bit of a win here. To be fair though, stock in a package, the Generations one also has a black head. The Japanese iteration had a red head, or you could do like I did and custom paint the head red. I feel like the Generations one was more accurate to the G1 toy. I feel like the Siege one is attempting to be more accurate to the G1 cartoon, but with, of course, a stylized alt mode. I'm going to say that the paint apps on the Siege iteration are, I'm going to say that they're a solid 9. To be fair, here he is next to Siege Sideswipe, who is also a 9. Now, honestly, I think Sideswipe might even be a little bit better. Like, I want to actually say 8.5 for Red Alert, because he doesn't have his shoulder cannon thing, and the arms aren't quite right, and he doesn't have the doors on the outside. So there's a few things that are even more stylized about Red Alert. However, the reason that I do give him a 9 is because the red is a nice, deep, lush red. The paint, and I want to say the plastic match, maybe all the red is paint, I'm not really sure. And really the layout on the entire body outside of the arms is highly accurate. So that's why he's getting a 9. What about the articulation? Well, I said that the articulation for Sideswipe was a 10. I also said that the articulation for Red Alert was a 10. The Generations Red Alert. It's not really, because it has one significant limitation. And that limitation is the outward movement on the arms. As you can see, the Generations one can only go out that far. And outside of that, it's a fantastic figure with fantastic articulation. But admittedly, his shoulder, what do you call that? Lateral movement? I don't know what you call the outward movement. I'm going to call it lateral movement. It is highly limited. Now, that being said, what about the articulation on the Siege iteration? Well, I think most folks know by now the way that this goes. The head can go left, it can go right, it can look up, it can look kind of down. It's sort of in his chest a bit though. The arms go all the way around, out to the side. We can bend 90 degrees at the elbow. There's a swivel. The hands can go in, there's no rotation. We have a waist. We have legs that can go all the way forward. We have legs that can go all the way back. We have knee to 90 degrees. We have nice ankle tilt. Those up. And we have ability to do full splits. Honestly, the guy, outside of a wrist swivel that I don't really even notice, there's nothing really more I could want from a Red Alert. Articulation, 10, just like it was with Sideswipe. Transformation, honestly, it's pretty intuitive. It's a 10. Here is the way that it breaks down in terms of kind of a comparative analysis. The Generations Red Alert overall is about an 8.5, just like the classics Sideswipe. It's a great figure. Was, is, always will be a great figure, and if you're happy with the Generations iteration of Red Alert, you probably don't need to upgrade. The Siege Sideswipe overall is a 9.5. It's a fantastic figure. Honestly, Red Alert overall is still a 9.5. If you want to really nitpick because the arm coloring is off and he doesn't have a shoulder cannon, you could say that Sideswipe is a 9.5 and Red Alert is a 9, because there's a couple of extra things that could have been done to make him more accurate. But it's really kind of nitpicking, honestly. I know that Red Alert is going to get kind of looked over a nice bit because he's just a mold reuse. But he's a fantastic mold reuse. Do I have my issues with the Sideswipe mold? Yeah, kind of. I find the flipping into the feet to be really, really almost scary type. But outside of that, that's about it. I do find the door that flip on the sides, like they're small pieces. I don't know what the longevity will be like over time. I would just say be careful with it. I mean, I don't think it's going to necessarily break, but like if you're not careful and they break, I also won't be shocked. It boils down like this. If you have room, space, interest in your collection to have, you know, like a Earth-based mode and a Cybertronian mode, great. Have 2 red alerts and be happy that red alert is a figure who's been lucky enough to have 2 great toys made of them. But if you try to control your collection and the size of it and only want to have 1 iteration of the character of red alert, well, what do you go with? I think it boils down to whether or not you actually like this look for your display of these 2 characters, or this look for those 2 characters. By the way, you'll notice the positioning of the doors on the arms. For Sideswipe, they're put behind the arm. For red alert, they're on the outside of the arm. Neither pairing, whether we're talking about the Generations or we're talking about the Siege, neither pairing is perfect, but both pairings are quite excellent in their own right. What about the question of all questions, though? Guilty or innocent? Well, for that we need to compare these 2 guys at their kind of brass tacks. Neither's a bad figure. The Siege is probably a little bit better because the feet are a little more sturdy and he has better shoulder movement. I mean, there's no 2 ways about it. The outward movement is better on him, but that being said, the Generations is taller, bigger, and the alt mode, while still not exactly G1, at least it's like really in the recognizable ballpark. But here's what it really boils down to. We had a price increase of 33% here in Canada for a deluxe figure. That's a lot, especially when you have a figure that's already an excellent iteration of the character. It boils down to plastic content. And what is the plastic content? Well, the Generations red alert clocks in at 96 grams. The Siege red alert clocks in at 84 grams. Now, understandably, a lot of folks will say, hey, you can't compare these 2 because there's been so many years in between. And you're absolutely right. However, the typical going mass for a deluxe class figure in the most recent kind of like Generations offerings we've had, being the like Power of the Primes, Titans Return lines, for example, the going rate for a deluxe there was about 84, 85, 86 grams. So red alert is right on par with what we have always gotten in terms of plastic content. Is he guilty or innocent? Well, naturally, I'm going to defer to our judges. So my most esteemed Quintesson judges, I ask you, is red alert guilty or innocent of the Siege price increase? Guilty. So there you have it. He's a fantastic figure, a near-on perfect figure actually. Be leery, be aware of things like his doors, because they are small pieces. Just make sure that you're taking care when you're transforming the guy. He's not hard, the joints are hinge and swivel rather than ball pegs. It works nicely. Is he guilty of the price increase? Yes. This is not a $30 Canadian figure, but it is definitely a $20 Canadian figure. It falls right in line with what we have always gotten in terms of size and actual content. One could argue that perhaps a little bit of the price increase is at least justified because the tolerances on this guy are a little bit better than what you might experience in the past. And I can see the argument certainly for that. And while I agree that perhaps a couple of bucks extra is all right, I feel like as do the Quintessons, that the magnitude of this one-time increase was perhaps for this guy a little bit too much. And while I think that you can skip him if you have the Generations one and you're happy with it, if you don't have a red alert in your collection, he's definitely worth getting, but he's probably worth getting once he goes on sale. And here we are once again, and there's a lot here that I'm pleasantly surprised about. The head and the body is the same color red, or at least it certainly looks like it in hand, and I'm happy about that because a lot of photographs did not make it appear that way. I do wish that the arms were, I don't know, a little more, I don't even know how to say it. I wish that the arms were a little more colorful than just the white. And to be fair, you probably could kind of paint the front of this area here black, and you could probably paint this area red. I don't know. I'm not even sure if I'm going to keep my Generations or replace it with this guy. I'm not 100% sure yet. I'd love to hear what you guys would do, considering that I only have one representation of a character in my collection. I don't have two. I'm not having an Earth mode and a Cybertronian mode. I'm having one red alert one way or another. So I'd like to know which one kind of stands out to you guys. And I don't think either of them are bad. I really don't. I think they're both fantastic figures. I don't know if you need to upgrade to the Siege line if you're happy with what you have. If you don't have an earlier version of Red Alert and you've been sort of waiting on, hey, I don't have him in my collection, this is a great one to add. There's certainly nothing wrong with it. Here's the thing. If you're in for the Siege line or you're in for a Red Alert figure because you just don't have one, don't overlook this guy. He's actually quite good. Yes, he is guilty of not being quite justified for the price increase because there's actually less plastic used here. It is what it is. And in terms of improvements, the shoulders, besides that, everything this guy does, pretty much the other version can do as well. I could understand, and I do like, by the way, that we don't have ball joints here. We have hinges and swivels. I understand that some price increase, yeah, that's justified. I don't know if the extent of what we had was justified. Nevertheless, if you're cool with it, or, you know what, you're cool with keeping your eyes peeled for a sale, I don't think that this is one you should just let kind of, go through your grasp. Kind of get him while you can, because he's actually a really neat little figure. Let me know what you think about this guy. As always, you know I love to hear from you guys. I appreciate you dropping by and giving me some of your very valuable time. I know how important it is to you. If you're in a position to help the channel to grow, there is a donation link down in the description. Again, I'm going to say please hit that subscribe button. It helps me out so very, very much. And I look forward to the next time that you and I get together, either in the live streams or right here for another visit inside the videos.